Hello, all you patrons. Welcome to another pre-show.
Welcome, welcome, thrice welcome. Even though you may think the holidays are over, you are so wrong. We are still in the octave of the Epiphany. We are 3 weeks at least before Candlemas. I mean, we've got nothing but Yuletide treasure ahead of us for the next few weeks.
I've still got my Christmas tree up, unlike some other people.
Yes, well, I threw mine out the window, literally. It was defenestrated. And I've got photographic proof, too.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's weird. The older I get, Christmas used to end on Christmas for me as a kid, but the older I get, the longer the Christmas season continues for me.
And the more you want it to, the more you want to hold on to it.
Yeah.
I mean, tell the truth, doesn't it, in the weeks after Christmas, doesn't it do you after the day, doesn't it do your heart quite a thing when you're driving around at night and you see people still with lights up?
I do. There's a lot too. Like there's big nativity scenes and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So it makes me happy for sure.
I mean, really, in a lot of ways, Christmas joy is kind of a protest against all the dreck we're put through.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I've said this before. Like, so when my dad passed, actually January 10th,
Yeah.
2 years ago, and then that was right before COVID. We had kept, I mean, our interior Christmas lights up the entire year. I mean,
Yeah.
because combined, right? Like that's like the double whammy. Like we needed it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And believe me, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at
yeah,
all.
yeah.
So keep keep the Christmas festivities alive, ladies and gentlemen. Mardi Gras is the last gasp.
The last gasp of Christmas. That's a nice thought. That's a nice thought. That changes. I like how that changes the perception of Mardi Gras for people too. I mean, because people don't associate Christmas with Mardi Gras at all.
No.
I think that's one of the benefits, perhaps, of reading the Liturgical Year by Gueranger,
Yeah.
where you
You
get,
see,
yeah,
basically, you've got this wonderful time. I mean, in a sense, although Advent is a preparatory time belonging to Christmas, the way Lent belongs to Easter. You have this wonderful, immense period from Advent, the first Sunday of Advent, to Mardi Gras. That, I mean, granted that Advent itself is penitential, and the pre-Lenten period has a certain amount of penance to it. Septuagesima has, the purple vestments and all that, but still, that period is very much a chunk on its own.
yeah,
And then you've got Lent through Pentecost as another chunk. And then the time after Pentecost, you just sort of get through until Christmas comes again, till Advent comes again.
yeah. And for all you patrons, it's worth re-saying, and we've re-said this before, but we have a lot of new people. Um, you know, a lot of sort of Charles's approach to the calendar and his love of this is born out of Dom Guéranger's Liturgical Year.
Yes.
So that's a very important resource. I have this as well, but I'm not nearly as as versed in it as Charles. But
It's been my daily guide since, well, for about 30 years.
exactly. So
So,
so we don't talk about this book a lot, but it's definitely worth mentioning. Well, it's not book. It's like I
it's a
don't know
big
what
series of books.
15 books at there. It's you go to Loretto Publications. It's worth $500 combined. They're very sturdy hardcovers. And if you're looking for a supplement for daily reading and stuff like that, and Saint of the Day, things like that, that's the book for you.
And if you're one of these Restore the 54 folks, well, that's great because he's definitely before 54.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, and there's a lot of interesting factoids that you pick up that we haven't even talked about, I don't think. I
No,
try to mention them from time to time, but you learn a lot too.
you do indeed, and it's and all he weaves together beautifully so many elements: history, liturgy, folklore, doctrine, everything. He just pulls it all together beautifully. So I can't recommend it highly enough.
Hmm. All right, questions time.
Ah, is that what we're here for? I knew that. You're not fooling me. I knew what I was here for. Fine. All right. Do your worst. I don't care.
All right. Two questions from Youssef. His first one is, do you know anything about Catholicism in Benin?
Yes.
Okay. Second question.
Not a lot. What I know is that it was first brought by the Portuguese, and a lot of the Catholics in Benin are the descendants of either Portuguese slave traders who came and settled permanently, or of Brazilian ex-slaves, Afro-Brazilians, who returned to Benin from Brazil after they were liberated. And then when the area was taken over by the French, they did a lot of missionary work. So that's you've got sort of a twofold set of origins of Catholicism in Benin, or Dahomey as it was called, prior to 1977 or something. It's sort of a double-handled Portuguese and French thing.
Okay. Have you heard of the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization that France made their former colonies sign? What does it do? Why did they sign this?
Well, you've got to remember that France put an awful lot of money into her overseas colonies, most of them. She didn't do a lot for the Ubangi Shari, which we call today the Central African Republic. So as a result, it's always been kind of the stepchild of Africa. Nobody's really interested. But in countries like Senegal, Gabon, the Ivory Coast, they put in a lot of money and they wanted to continue to get returns on their investment. And this was a good deal for the countries involved, because in return for allowing the French to continue to exploit their resources, they got paid and continue to get paid. And if their governments got too crazy, the French would relieve them of them. That was why the closest, you'll notice that French Africa never had an Idi Amin. The closest they ever got was Emperor Bokassa in the fabulous Central African Republic. But when he turned to cannibalism, the French removed him.
Interesting.
But there was nobody to remove Idi Amin. The British certainly wouldn't do it. The Americans wouldn't do it. So that boy just sat around being finger licking good till he finally was deposed. But had Uganda been a French colony, Amin would have been out a lot sooner.
They didn't say, they didn't mention that at all in that. What is it? Forrest Whitaker played him, I believe, in the last King of Scotland.
No.
Was that Idi Amin? I thought that's
Yeah,
Idi
that
Amin.
was Idi Amin.
Yeah, yeah. They didn't mention that at all.
No. Well, see, the French, they have been much more active in their former colonies as a rule than the British. And as I say, there have been, I don't know how many, since independence for most of them in 1960. I don't know how many times the French have intervened in their former colonies, but they've done it pretty regularly.
In the last King of Scotland too, the other thing I remember is that it wasn't the French who were playing around. It was they said it was the British.
Yeah, Uganda was a British colony.
Okay. Oh, I see.
But the British are out to get me. They weren't out to get anybody. They're just limp.
Okay.
No, I mean honestly, I do believe that independence was by and large for most of Africa a bad idea. Certainly the way it was handled, and the French did a better job of granting their colonies independence than the British did, because the British just said, have a nice day. whereas the French have maintained an active interest in them. This has had some failures. The Civil War in the Ivory Coast probably was not a wonderful thing at all, but by and large, they've done a pretty good job by it, and to virtually no outside criticism. You never hear about them doing anything, and they do. I mean, when they got rid of Bokassa in the Central African Republic turned Empire turned Republic, the way it was supposed to go was that there would be a coup d'etat led by his cousin David Dacko, and then the French would intervene and restore order. But unfortunately, the locals got the timing mixed up, so the French intervened and restored order, and then they had the coup.
French superiority over British, you espouse. What a shocker.
I just thought I'd point out that some peoples are better at certain things than other peoples are.
Okay.
I mean, look, the French didn't get bogged down. I mean, they learned from Indochina and Algeria, quick and surgical.
Okay.
They don't. They learned not to have that happen again. And of course, the other thing with both Algeria and Indochina was that they made the huge mistake of relying on the United States. They never did that again.
Right. Patrick says, what does Mr. Coulombe think of the fiery Dominican Renaissance preacher Savonarola?
I feel like him the way I feel like about his contemporary, Alexander VI. There were two diametrically opposed historical schools regarding both figures. For one, the two were heroes, maybe even saints. For the other, they were just evil, horrible, terrible men. I have never felt capable of choosing between either school for either man.
Maybe that's a logical fallacy.
What? Maybe not giving it and not having an opinion in an area where I don't know enough to do so.
No, I mean,
how is that a fallacy?
Angel from heaven or demon from hell? You know, like, can't it be a mixture?
Well, I'm sure you could be, but the only two schools, there's no third school on either one. They're just the two.
I mean, like, you have good intentions, you want to promote reform, you're really strict, but then perhaps you go overboard on some things. Like, wouldn't that be like an example of...
Maybe.
You know what I mean? Like people
I know exactly
are complicated people, you know?
I know exactly what you mean, but I'm just telling you. Having done a lot of reading about both, this is what I've come up with. And I'm not in a position to choose between them.
You've done a lot of reading and you've come up with bubkas?
Yeah. The only way I would know better is if I could go back to Florence at that time in Rome and see Alexander and Savonarola for myself. And then I might be in a position to form a better opinion. But failing that, I'm stuck with secondary sources that divide along party lines.
I'm unhappy with this a little bit. So let's...
Okay, fine. They were all wonderful.
No. Okay, I'm going to decide. I'm going to control the narrative, and we're going to unpack this. Okay?
Oh, gosh.
Okay, so firstly, let's
I want to pack up the narrative and stick it in the closet.
Let's pack up the narrative? All right. What do the pro Savonarola people say that was good about him?
Well, that he came and he reformed a corrupt city, i.e. Florence, and in doing so annoyed the corrupt, including Pope Alexander VI, which is why he ended up getting burned.
Is that true, or do you feel that's true, or not?
Let's put it this way. I feel it's partly true. He certainly annoyed a lot of people. Did he go too far? Well, maybe.
I mean, was the city better for it?
That's a hard question to answer because the city went back to its old ways. So, was it better? I don't know. It got. Let's just say that after a few months under Savonarola, it got tired of it.
Okay, So what do his detractors say?
His detractors say that he was full of himself. He judged everything according to himself. He was rebellious, disobeyed his vows of obedience, and was a heretic, and he got what he deserved.
Judged everything according to himself, and that's easy to say about anybody, no?
I know that.
Well,
If this were an easy issue, I would have made a decision, now wouldn't I?
I don't know. Based on what you tell me, it sounds like the pro Savonarola people have a stronger case, just based on that. But I don't know.
Don't take my word for it. Do your own research.
What? You just said that you read all this stuff and you've come up with bupkis. And what am I supposed to come up with?
Well, you want an opinion, so have it your own. Get your own bupkis. Stop trying to share my bupkis. It's mine. Nobody gets my bupkis.
All right, fine.
I'm holding on to my nothing, and nobody gets any of my nothing.
All right, fine. Question from Oscar. All right, Oscar says, would Mr. Coulombe comment on the Indigenism movement that is being pushed in the Hispanic community in the United States? And also, what are the origines of Latin American studies?
What are the origins? I see. All right. Well, firstly, I'll tell you what I think of Indigenism. It's garbage. Pure, unadulterated crapola. It is sewage. It is used basically to attack not just the Spanish, but more importantly for the midget-minded Anglo Marxist professors who invented it. It's used really to attack the church. That's the enemy, you say.
Well, what
and
is
really,
it?
The idea that the pastoral indigenous peoples of the Americas lived happily and in harmony with nature, with each other, with the land, and they were all at peace. But then came the evil Spaniards, and they, through fire and sword, destroyed these peaceful civilizations and imposed their white man's God. And they were evil colonialists, and they're still evil colonialists, and they were bad. And then they formed buildings called universities, and they forced the descendants of the Indians to go to them and listen to mindless morons steeped in Marx babble. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, that part of the narrative wasn't, that was added. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that bit. The Marxist morons, they're okay, because they're the ones who came up with this garbage. No, basically, they took the old anti-Spanish black legend that was cooked up by the English Protestants during the Reformation, and they gave it a Marxist and anti-European twist. And the result is the Indigenismo. And it's utter garbage. It's complete and utter garbage. What's interesting to me now, though, is that in Latin America, Carlism and Tradicionalismo, the love of Hispanidad, is spreading among some of the youth. And I just read an account by this Peruvian chick based in England, who obviously is in touch with their culture, who's horrified at the fact that the Carlist flag, the red cross of Burgundy on the white field, is appearing at right-wing protests from Peru and Chile and Argentina, and it's obvious that they're fascists and they're racists, and it's just so awful. I'm glad she's in England, and I hope she stays there. She has no business being in Latin America, because she is what the Aztlan brown beret types of my youth would call a tia taca.
What is that?
Well, a taca is a female taco. A tia is an aunt. Tio Taco was what the brown berets called. It's like Uncle Tom, Tio Taco. Get it? So tia taca would be an aunt. Now, since the truth of the matter is that, like the brown berets, these people are just aping what their Anglo betters are telling them. They're the real Tio Tacos. It was the Brown Berets themselves who came up with the term. They were the ones who best fit it. A little bit like the Holy Father. You'll find people who ignorantly criticize very often are guilty of what they're saying. That's why the Holy Father is so rigid and Neopelagian and other big words he uses.
All right.
The origins, of course. The origins are from the 60s. I mean, they brought up bits and pieces of anti-Spanish propaganda from before. But what we have today is primarily dreamed up in the same pinheads that dreamed up all sorts of other fun stuff during the 60s, and who now are university senior faculty administrators, just like their bishops and, you know.
I was randomly watching EWTN, and
as one does.
I was listening to this guy talk. I forgot what his name was. It was something Anders. Was it David Anders? EWTN? Yeah, David Anders. There he is. Yeah. He was very knowledgeable. But I was surprised because he talked about the Neo-Pelagian comment that Pope Francis... He actually referred to Pope Francis in the Neo-Pelagian comment. And he said something about it. I don't know anything about this, okay? I'm just regurgitating what people say. But he had said...
It's the best way.
Yeah, but he had said that... or he implied that Pope Francis, by that, he meant that basically it's people who feel that they're going to the right mass, they're going to the Latin mass, and because they go to the right mass, they don't need to do anything else. They don't need to make an effort in any other way.
No, that's exactly what the Holy Father is doing by forbidding the Latin Mass, which has become the wrong Mass. The right Mass is his guitar Mass and Pachamama.
Yeah, I just thought, okay, I just thought I'd throw that out
there. The Holy Father, I sure hope that the theory that he's undergoing dementia is true, because it would certainly absolve him of a lot of responsibility.
I'm too busy role-playing as a medieval peasant when it comes to the Holy Father. All right.
Yeah, well, if you played a Chinese peasant, you wouldn't be able to get away with
it. Okay. All right. What is it? Dwarf of Alexandria says, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. 2 questions. Number 1, would you tell us about some of the extra biblical stories and traditions of a few of the apostles, particularly those besides Peter, John, James the Greater, and Paul?
Well, they tell us that St. Thomas went to India and evangelized there, which is why the Indian Christians regard St. Thomas as their father. St. Matthew is supposed to have gone to Ethiopia. St. Andrew to have evangelized Constantinople, Greece, what's now Ukraine, into Russia. So he's considered the by the Eastern Orthodox, they consider him the first patriarch of Constantinople. And that's why when there have been encounters between the Pope and the Patriarch, they've spoken of as Peter meeting his brother Andrew. St. Paul may have gone to Spain, and there's even a tradition went as far as Britain. And that is why the cathedral in London is St. Paul's Cathedral, and why the King of England had a very special relationship before the break with Rome with St. Paul's outside the walls in Rome. To this day, their coat of arms is the same as the Order of the Garter. So there you go. And St. Bartholomew, I think it's supposed to have gone to Persia. Yeah.
If you are at the home of a Protestant for dinner, should you refuse or abstain from praying with them before the meal? If yes, do you have any advice on how to do so optimally? Thank you both.
Well, first we should tell them that they're probably evil people and excoriate them for trying to poison you. That's what I would do. No. Yes, of course you should pray with them, but cross yourself. You don't have to be all outdoors about it, but make sure you cross yourself before and after the prayer if one of them says it. And inevitably, they will ask you about that. And you'll get to tell them why it is that you open and close all your prayers with the sign of the cross. Now, the downside is you'll have to know why you do that and what it all means. But that is a very important way to witness to non-Catholics.
So
It
I haven't read
goes in
about
the name
this,
of the
but
Father and of the Son and of the Holy Ghost.
I mean, you're just acknowledging God, the fullness and all the aspects of God, which is
Yeah.
you should always do. Isn't that the reason? I mean, that's right. Like, or is there something?
Well, they'll want to know why you do it, and you'll have to explain it. And of course, the fact that it's a peculiarly Catholic and Orthodox, well, Anglo-Catholic custom is something that you'll have to explain to them as well. Even some high church Lutherans do it.
Well, why don't Protestants do it?
Because it's Catholic.
I mean, okay. Let me rephrase. When Protestants broke away from the tradition of doing that, what was their reasoning?
It's Catholic.
Did they really say? No, they didn't. People are not.
Papist. No, because they were very much against, the Calvinists in particular, were very, very much against that sort of outward sign of prayer.
An outward sign of prayer they're against?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. You'd have to ask them. It's papist. But they did not like the sign of the cross.
Why do they go to church then? Isn't that outward? Why don't they just stay at home?
Well, because if they stayed at home, the minister wouldn't get any money. What's wrong with you?
I don't know. This is all complicated and it doesn't make sense to me.
It shouldn't. It doesn't make sense, really. Why should it?
I understand agnosticism and secularism and all this stuff way better than Protestantism. It's just, rooted in vice, but this Protestantism is complicated.
It is very complicated. I mean, it's also far from monolithic. So what you can say of one bunch of Protestants, you can't necessarily say of all of them. The only thing they all have in common is that they're not Catholic. Yeah, beyond that, it's up for grabs.
It's like the other things I don't understand is like what how come, why are they against chivalry? Why are they against all these yeah, you know what I mean? Like they don't have this knighthood thing going on.
Well, some of them do. In Sweden, Scandinavia, and in England.
Oh, good.
They do. They have orders of knighthood. But there was an animus against it, especially because of the Marian element in chivalry.
Okay.
I can see this is giving you a hard time.
I just need to let go. I just need to be laid back. Let go and let God. Yeah.
Remember, caring is sharing.
I'm trying not to care. I care about too many things. I'm trying to just like...
You know how you can stop caring? Share whatever you care, and you'll find the amount of care goes way down.
That doesn't make sense. Wait, what? Share whenever you care?
Yes, caring is sharing, or sharing is caring. So every time you start to care about something, give some money to somebody. And then you'll find the amount of care you've got goes down
money.
Real quick.
I thought you meant like a social media post or something, which everybody does.
No. I'm talking about money.
Wow.
If you link your amount of care to any given thing about sharing. So like, for instance, you're getting all upset about something, right?
Yeah.
Run over to PayPal and send money.
I don't want to do that though. I just want to complain.
Then obviously you can stop caring about it.
Wow, that's pretty good. I like that. Do I care
If it's
enough to
not
give
worth
money?
if it's not worth sharing, it's not worth caring.
Gosh, that's brilliant, Charles. I'm going to use that as a mental tactic for my own things. Yeah. Wow.
No, when you
But
find yourself getting really put out, it's terrible about the orphans in Zaire. Well, great. Look up online, Orphans in Zaire charities, and then decide whether or not to send them via PayPal.
well, let's say I care a lot about the scandal in the Vatican with the Grinder accounts. Where do I
All
put
right,
my money?
Grinder.
What the hell?
Well, that way you can get in touch with the Cardinals directly and express your
You can.
express your disapproval. You can call them up. You know, your evidence. I really don't like your being on Grinder. I think you should get off.
Through
I
Grinder,
think
you say?
I think your evidence that having a Grinder account really is a bad deal, and I just wanted to tell you that. I knew you wouldn't listen to me any other way.
Imagine that, like for real. Imagine
Yeah,
somebody.
wouldn't that be fun? Hello, is this Big Red? Yeah, this is Big Red. Well, I know who you are, Cardinal Jacobi. Ha! I've got your Grinder account. Who is this? It's someone who's sick and tired of your using Grinder. Now get off.
Wow. That was good. Okay.
That I see. I don't actually know how Grinder works, so I don't know if you can get it kind of geographically oriented.
It's weird, man. I've had. Yeah, it's weird.
Well, no, I mean, I don't know how any of I've never done any of these dating apps, but I mean, can you get them so like it would only focus on a certain geographical area?
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Because I'll tell you
There's
what, if you could, I'd get me a Grinder account tuned in only to the Holy See, only to the Vatican.
yeah, it's a lot of weird.
I don't take no calls from anybody outside those walls.
Wow. Wow.
That'd be great. Ring ring. Hello. Hello, Your Eminence. Huh? How did you know? Well, you're calling from the Vatican, I presumed. You know, get off Grinder, Your Eminence, or I will expose you. That'd be great.
I would be. All right. What are
What's
you
that?
doing? What are you doing?
That's grinding.
Okay, don't do that again, please. All
You
right.
don't want to do that? Grist for the gods?
All
Grist
right.
for the mill?
Last question for the pre-show is from Sandra, who says, I noticed you talked and joked about the Central African Republic on Off the Menu this week. You realize that Russia is interfering in the country, right?
Thank God somebody is. The Central African Republic is one of the most godforsaken places on earth. The French didn't do much with it. They had Bokassa as their emperor, who, as I say, after he became emperor, he turned cannibal. So the French removed him, which was a blessing. But the country's in terrible shape. It has had several semi-successful UN peacekeeping missions, primarily because they were successful because, as is usually the case with UN peacekeeping, it's generally successful when no great power is interested in the region. The problem for the Central African Republic is that there's a reason they're not interested. There's not a lot there. I think they have tungsten or something. Anyhow, if the Russians are interfering in the Central African Republic, I hope they're paying for the privilege. I hope they're bringing something decent to the lives of the poor people who are stuck living there. I mean, you know, the United States can't interfere in every country in the world.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, we get so concerned when there's Russia's interfering and all this and that, as if we don't interfere in literally every other country in the world.
And what does it mean they're interfering? With what? Are they building an airport? Or are they licensing a Starbucks? What are they doing? I don't know. All I can tell you is that if they're doing anything that brings in a bit of outside money and makes the lives of the people there a bit better, I'm all for it. We're certainly not going to bail them out. We're too busy trying to pay back all the weaponry we lost in Kabul. Oh, I'm sorry. Still too soon?
Wow. All right.
Think of all the money we dumped in Afghanistan for nothing. So the Russians, as far as I'm concerned, are welcome to pour as much money into the Central African Republic as they possibly can afford.
All right. Okay, that's it for the pre-show. We have a very substantial full episode coming up. A lot of good questions, a lot of memes too. A lot of memes.
Yes, we have memes. We even, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to reveal to you the contents of the letter, but I received an irate letter which I intend to read and respond to.
All right, stay tuned.
See you soon.